Yes, Yanis, we are recording this session. We do. We do. Good morning, Fernando. Good morning, Jill, Joanny, Rodrigo, and Yanis. We're very happy to see you here. There's a recording. Don't worry, Yanis. Don't worry. But before we record, we have to make sure that all participants are being heard and the recorder picks up the voices for the recording. Happy to see you here, Jill. How do you do? If you have noticed, today we posted a new book in the selected reading. I guess that Fernando already have heard about the writer, maybe Joanny too. This is a very interesting book. The author wrote many books about the topic. This is about non-duality. Just about this week. Yes, I see. Yes, I see. It was interesting because I was hearing the first sentences of the book, and then Andre found or pick up the book somewhere, and I said, but I heard the few sentences of the book. This is how the opening sentences is. He says, I found it interesting. And we shared it with you. It's basically about non-duality, and this is our topic for the last few weeks or months and so. And the message is very, how do you say, sane. In a way, what we evidence here as universe, as people, as happening is basically emptiness that none of us is doing. Since we are about 2 years old, we have the baby or the toddler has his own brain, and the baby or the toddler captures himself or herself as separated entity. And then, in a way, starts a linear relation between the toddler and the world. There's me and the world. But this is only, let's say, a perception of the toddler that we're taking this perception with us as we grow up, and we tend to believe that this is true, the absolute truth, and there's me and the world. What I like exists, or what I love exists and wonderful, and what I don't does not exist or miserable. This is not the truth at all. And the best thing is, in a way, as the author, because he also has a nickname for it, or he has a, let's say, pseudonym for the books that he was writing. Basically, there is no me as an entity, as a doer, as a story, as a history. And all the suffering and all the heaviness that we are carrying around ourselves is due to the thoughts or the thinking which is happening all the time, because the thinking which is happening mechanically is only about the narration, which is not true. The narration is about me as a name, as a story, as a separated existence. And it's not true at all. And let's say the fastest we give away this illusion of me, of a narration, of a story, the happier we become. Because this is, in a way, a full dressing, the story, the heaviness that it is carrying. There is a British actor, I believe that maybe you've heard about him, Samuel West. And he said something, in his generation, he is the fourth generation of actors. There's his father, his mother, his grandpa and his great-grandfather, and he says that it is heavy on him only because he believes, yes, he believes that he is according to his story. You can hear him or read his words because it is, I think I heard him or I read this interview about him. You can find it, Samuel West. He feels this heaviness like gravitating about on him. He believed that this is so, but not just him. This is just an example. All of us, in a way, growing with certain story around us. And we tend to believe that this is true. Why we tend to believe that this story is true? Why? Because there's me in the center. This is what makes the story true. If we take this me, and this me can be anybody, Yanis, Rodrigo, Fernando, Jill, Felipe, Giovanni, Cindy, if we take this me from this story, from this narration, there isn't any. And this is the truth. So the more we are willing, and it's about willing even to considerate this option, just to considerate, what do I mean by considerate? Just to hear it. This is to consider it, yes? That there is no me, and there is no narration such around me where I was born, who is my grandparents, and so. Once there isn't narration like this around us, there is no gravitation around the me. And when there is no gravitation around me, there is no suffering. Because when, and this is an open question, you can answer as you wish. When do we usually feel suffering? Or the suffering that we tend to capture, where does it come from? Where does this suffering come from? It comes, yes, from the narrator, yes, that suggests us the mere chance that this story is not about me, and immediately comes suffering. Suffering is not, there is a difference between pain and suffering. Pain, let's say, if somebody walks and hits mistakenly a chair, yes, let's say, walk and he is browsing the phone and he hit a chair. Oh, pain, oh. So he hit the chair, there's a bounciness and there's a click, there's a sense of pain. Oh, I hit, yes, I hit an object, yes, and there's a pain. This is physical pain. Sometimes people have like blue bruises because they hit something. So this is a pain. But suffering is what is happening in the realm of the thinking. We chew, we bite and chew this alternative story that the mind suggests us about ourselves. And then suffering is what is being produced. Suffering is a product. Again, there is a difference between a pain and suffering. Yes, if somebody has a dental, yes, his tooth is aching. There's a pain. He goes to the doctor, okay, we need to do this and that. So this is a pain or ache. It is physically being felt and dealt with like a hole in the wall. There's a hole in the wall. It's not nice. Let's fill it and let's color it. Yes? But suffering is a product. This is something which is artificial because it is, it is conditioned in the story that we are hearing, so to speak, at the moment of this is happening. Because if this narrative is being stopped and we move to another room in the building, let's say, or in the mind, the suffering does not exist. This is a mechanism, yes, that is there to keep us in cage, not to feel freedom, not to feel happiness, not to sense laughter. So suffering is an artificial product. The thing is, once we quit this, let's say, movie called suffering, we also quit on this me as the center of suffering. So what happens to us is that we sense a loss, a tragedy. Somebody died inside because there's no me anymore. So by quitting the me as a center of a story, we experience a death, a loss. And what there if there isn't any me? At the beginning, it sounds like a suicide. How do you say? Yes, like a suicide to quit about the me as a center. But the more we hear this idea, less heavier we feel and more happier and more open. Yes, to life as life appear in the moment. Yes, Yanis? There is a pain, there is a chronic pain, and there's a pain that people feel pain, constant or chronic, yes? And this is to deal with. People take all kinds of remedies to ease the pain, that the pain will be bearable. This is pain. But suffering is something that is created in the mind. There is a pain. And I heard about a lady that she was having chronic pain for years. And she did not know what to do, and nothing helped her. And she started writing letters to others, greeting cards, poem, drawing little drawings. And in the time or in the moment that she was writing letters and cards and little paintings for people, she did not feel any pain at all. We also tend to believe that what is around me belongs to me, whether it is objects, whether it's the natural surrounding, we tend to believe that whatever we mention in name, yes, and is being captured in our cognition is mine. Do you see the relation between language and cognition? Once a toddler, yes, our ability to speak is, in a way, creating a sense, a false sense of knowing, a false sense of narration, and is caging us in this story. First, we hear words from the people around us, we hear terms. This is how babies and toddlers, they learn to speak. Not that they learn from specific person, it does not happen like this. It comes from this infinite source, their ability to speak. But the mind or the brain catches the details and composes a story around details, and those little details come together in a story which is hooked to me. And the more we progress, the child progresses in years, the more he adds more and more details to this me, details that he doesn't like, he just dispose or he hates, or those things have no relation to him or to her. And this is how we continue to grow, so to speak, linearly. We attach ourselves to what we consider, yes, as good, as tasteful for us, and we reject what is not conceivable in our minds. And the more and more we continue with this, the more alienation, yes, we collect, until one day there is no space for this alienation, and everything just shattered because it is not true. It's not true. And once this narration, it doesn't happen in one moment, but gradually it loses its grip, and more life can stream and manifest through us, because there is space for them, because this narration about me does not block, so to speak, the guest, because every moment, the present moment, is a guest. The present moment is a guest. If we are occupied, yes, with this story about me, it's like there's a stone inside, like a firewall that blocks the current moment, the guest to arrive. And what we feel is the rejection, our rejection to the world, and life become unbearable. And slowly comes a yes, as Jill, as the mind produces this cage of sun. This is something that happens naturally to each and every one. All of it, there are 8 billion people or more around us at the moment. And this is what the brain does. This is what it produces, because the brain is also a machine. And it's supposed, in a way, to keep this body. Yes? There's all kinds of activity that move between the brain to the body, because there is a life which is connected, the soul is connected to the body. Yes? So let's say somebody needs to buy milk, so yes, the mind is completely very good, Yanis. There is a mind and there is a brain. Yes. The mind is infinite. The mind is infinite intelligence. This is why we say in English mindset. We don't say brain set. Yes? Brain is the mechanics. This is due to time and space. It will operate in time and space. You need to be somewhere. The brain will calculate immediately where you need to stand, take your car, drive. This is mechanically happening. Mind is something else. It is usually that the brain takes over. The brain is like a slave. Yes? And the brain takes over the mechanics. And we are just working for this. This is outwardly calculation. It's like calculate. This is not mind. Mind, in a way, is not related to time and space. This is what we usually, I would say, relate to the three upper spheres. It's like, in a way, a cloud, a suggestive cloud that all the time streams to us if we're empty. If we're empty. It's like two circuits. Circuits, if we speak in terms of electronics, electricity. Yes, there are two kinds of circuits. There's the mind. This is not limited. Yes. And there's the brain, like electricity inside one house only, or one domain. It's limited. The mind is not limited. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I see. Mind. It's a bit, I would say, for brain, moach, yes. And mind can be mochin or da'at. But those are ancient terms, yes. Mind is not limited. It's like these three upper spheres, infinite, Chokhmah, and Binah. Those are not limited. They will, it's like, I would say, a hallway, yes, between the limited and the unlimited. There's a hallway there. It has to be empty that things can come all the time. And the brain is like a guard. Yes, it just guards that, unfortunately, that nothing new will come because it's always about me. Yes, excellent, Yanis. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Yes. Yes, excellent. Yes. Yes. I would say the mind is like being lent to us what we need. This is beautifully, the question is excellent, or the paraphrasing is excellent, because the brain is always, what does the brain do? Worrying. This is its radio, worrying, tuck, 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 tuck. What about this? What about that? If it will be rain, if there'll be a drought, yes, if there be economic catastrophe, if there will be a war. This is the brain. Worries of any kind, in any color, 24/7. This is what the brain does. In charge of the fog and the false worrying. What will be, what will be, what will be, what will be, and fog us like electron, yes? Yes. This is the brain. But the mind, which is in a way, is being lent, like we borrow a book in the library, yes? The verb is to borrow, or to lend, how do you say, to borrow. The mind, yes, which is part of the soul, will always give us what we need in the moment that we need it. So all the worries that the brain broadcasts has no significance, because whatever we need will supply to us by the infinite consciousness. And the brain and its worrying is just a distraction. Everything will be sufficient. Nothing is lacking. Nothing is wrong. Nothing to be fixed, because nothing is broken. But the brain has a problem, because if we stop listening to him, he's like feel outsider, so he always make his sound louder. Yes, there are certain applications on the phone that it doesn't matter how mute you put them, they always come louder. Like commercial, they're always a bit louder than the general volume. The brain, all the ads and the commercial in the world, in all languages, they work on the same mechanism. Louder, noisier, creates more fog and anxiety and animosity. Yes. Everything is designed to create animosity. Whenever you access social media, it's about this or that. There's a hate speeches, or what happened to me this morning and not to the other friend that afternoon. So everybody is like a rat on a, not rat, mouse on a spinning wheel. Just more and more aggravation, more and more noise, dissatisfaction, more and more negativity, animosity. And there you have it. This is what the brain does, because everything is designed to create this comment from because the brain always comments. Yes, always commenting on things. The mind does not take it so serious, always looking from far. There is a beautiful verse about Miriam. Miriam, the sister of Moses. Once the mother put the basket or the ark on the water of the Nile, the Bible says, and Miriam was watching from far to see what is happening, not being close, but from far, not physically far, but far from space and time. So the mind the higher mind of the soul, that the soul is always like borrowing us this, her mind, let's say. The mind is not, how do you say, interested in struggles, because struggles and conflicts always happening in space and time. The mind has nothing to do with it. Like people say, struggling with time. I'm struggling with time. I don't manage to arrive to any meeting and so on. So you see, the plane that they are at the moment when they speak struggling with time, they are basically in space and time, moving meetings, try to drive faster to arrive to write more papers or so. Depends what they do at work or so. The mind is not operating from this realm of space and time. Not at all. It has no limit. Also, we, yes, not as connected to this body, to this me name, we have no limits. And this is the beauty of it. The brain always trains us to think, yes, in conditional way, in limited way. What I like, I don't like, what is my story, and so, but not the mind. There is no limitation, and there is no me, and there is no narration. Once, even if it's for a little moment, yes, even if it's once or twice a day, we can sense that this struggling that I have, so to speak, or someone has in time, it's not the higher mode of the soul. So you don't put too much attention. You just say this is a mechanical, has to do with mechanical activity. Because we tend, yes, thank you, Yanis, thank you. Yes, Miriam comes from Marom. Marom, in Hebrew, this is sky or heaven. Yes, a higher perspective, which is not limited to space and time. Most of our annoyance, I remember once I was driving in a car that the driver always used to take the radio or the music system. Whenever he left the car, he was afraid that he will be robbed or somebody will take his music. So whenever he left the car, he just turned off the key and also pulled the radio, what the music was there, and with him took it. And one day I was there, and he says that whenever he does it, he feels bothered by doing it. So he was doing it, yes, because he wanted to prevent someone from stealing his system, musical, ever. He was bothered. So first of all, he made sure that nobody will steal it because he will remove it anytime he leaves the car. So if it's dear to him, according to his understanding, he just pulled this radio, this music system from the car, and he's supposed to have peace with this because he wants to protect his system, but not. He was doing this, and while doing this, he said that he's bothered by doing this. You see the conflict. He wants to protect, let's say, his musical system, so he takes it out. But Well, every time leaving the car and he has to take it out by hand, he was bothered by doing it by the fact that he has to protect. So you see the conflict is to do something and to be bothered by doing it. This is a mechanical happening. This is what the brain really likes. The brain is like a dog which is barks all the time. In Hebrew, have. Have. Yes, give me. Oh, this is comical, but people are trapped. Here is another story. It's about cars. People have cars and they sometimes would like to go and meet friends at the mall or somewhere. Yes? And for this meeting, they usually take their car and drive to the place of meeting. But I heard from people that they were saying that they were so anxious entering the car because all the time of the driving, they were occupied by one thought. Shall I find a parking space for the meeting? So they were bothered, let's say half an hour driving, while driving, by the mere thought, shall I find a parking place, that when they eventually arrived to the meeting, they were so exhausted and wiped. They were physically attending the meeting, but not mentally. They were not there. This is a beautiful example of not being present in the moment. Always anxious, anxiety. Shall I find a parking space, parking lot? Shall I not? What will happen if someone in the last moment will take my parking space? And the brain creates 5 different scenarios where in this movie I'll find 5 alternative places to park my car. When finally this guy or this man arrives to the meeting, he's wiped. Nothing is there. Everybody say, how do you do? He just like a pale person, barely wants to drink water. He's not there. Lost his sugar, everything. This is an example of struggling. Yes, Rodrigo. Yes? Can you hear Rodrigo?
Hello, Etchi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
Oh, Etchi, listen to you just came to my mind. How can I say a history?
Yes.
I was reading a book, The Death of
Yeah.
Moses. The Death of
Yeah.
Moses,
Yes.
a 16th century manuscript, and a passage from this book tried to explain why Moses is called man of God, Ish Ha Elohim, Ish Ha Elohim, and so it says that on the eve of the people leave Egypt, while everyone was busy days searching for the place where Joseph had been buried, because he wants to take out of the bones, and then Sarah, the daughter of Asher, showed him the place, and Moses praying and asking for help to Joseph itself and to God. And then he took Joseph's bones out of the grave. And so it says that Moses did not do a small thing by disregarding all the gold and the taking Joseph out of Egypt. And if we think that Joseph representing Yesod, the connection of Malkut with the tree of life, perhaps we can realize or establish this connection of Joseph and this present moment that you talk about us, that we need to live this present moment. And I believe this present moment could be represented by Joseph and Yesod, that connecting us with the tree of life, that connect us to the infinite, and so beyond the material and the egoic concerns of personality. And I believe that when Moses looking for Joseph, he was not concerned about himself. He's just act guided by this flow. Thank you.
Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful lore. This is a lore that is being told. This is a very interesting story, by the way, because Joseph, before he died in Egypt, he asked that from the people attending the moment that he was leaving, he said, one day God will surely remember you in Egypt, and please raise my bones with you when you live in Egypt. This was, in a way, his last request, that they will take his bones when they will leave Egypt. Time has passed, and Moses was already asking Pharaoh, let my people go, let my people go. And at the time of the Exodus, he remembered Joseph's request, bring up my bones with you, with thee. But there was a problem, because the Egyptians that heard Joseph's request, they thought that if they will bury him in the sand or in a dry land, there will be a mark. Usually people bury their deers in cemetery and there's a mark. There's a road, there's a mark, because they go to visit it. So the Egyptian says something very interesting. If we shall bury Joseph in a dry land, the Hebrews will know the place, and they will come and take the bones, and they will leave Egypt, and we shall have no more or no longer slaves. Therefore, to ensure their slavery, we shall put Joseph's bones in the river, in the Nile, in the water, and the water is always moving. Yes? So they will never be able to find its place. They will never be able to rescue his bones, and we shall have Hebrew slaves forever. That way thought the Egyptians. And they put Joseph's bones in the river, in the Nile. But one lady saw the place, and her name was Serach bat Asher. She was adopted child by Asher, the eighth son of Jacob, and she saw the space, yes, in the Nile that they put his bones. And at the moment of Exodus, when all the Hebrews were busy of borrowing clothes and matters from their Egyptian friends, so to speak, who are busy, so to speak, of filling their pockets before they leave Egypt, the world of duality. They were busy. Moses was occupied with one mission: how to locate Joseph's bones, which are buried under the water in the Nile, and the water are moving all the time. So he was running on the bank of the river, back and forth, where to find, because without him there is no Exodus, because he is the covenant, the word. And then comes Serach Bat Asher. She lived many years, almost close to 400. And she was with Jacob, descending to Egypt in Exodus, yes, in Exodus chapter 1, 70 souls that were coming to Egypt. And she was with them, and she lived until the time of Moses. It's quite a lot of time. And she told Moses here, this part, and he took a cast of silver and wrote upon it, Alesho, rice bull, because he was considered to be the bull of economy. Yes, economy is always marked by the bull. So he wrote on this tray or cast of silver, Alesho, rice bull, and he threw it into the water at the place where Serach Bat Asher was pointing at. And immediately his cascade rose above the face of the water. And this is something that happened, how do you say, opposite to the law of nature, because the Egyptians never wanted Joseph to be found. So they did not put him in a casket of wood, but they put him in a casket of metal, of iron, which is very heavy and will be found because it's heavier than the water. But when Moses threw the silver cast tray into the water, his casket or, yes, ark came up, and he could take the casket with him, and they could leave Egypt. And so was the order of leaving Egypt. First, at the head, Joseph ark, and then Moses, and then the Hebrews. So in a way, without a covenant of Joseph, they could not leave Egypt. And this is, I guess, the story that Rodrigo would like to share with us, the story about Joseph and how Moses was occupied in the present moment in what to do right, or what is the right thing to do. Yes? Usually the brain is always suggesting us all kinds of nonsense, and we are busy, yes, in subcontinents, I call it, in forgotten rooms, yes, inside in all kinds of storytelling about life, about narration, and those things are never happening. And we are not fully present in the moment. So the more we, let's say, release those stories about me, about my life and the world, my stories in high school, in the neighborhood, those, just quit those stories, because it's not real. It's not real. And then a lot of space is being opened inside, and life can stream as is, without us putting a narration around it and saying what is belong to me or what is not, what I like and what I don't like, all these conditions that we have. So thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you a very beautiful, most wonderful weekend, beautiful season, and we hope to see you here again as soon as possible. Thank you for all. תודה and Shabbat Shalom.